Hello, my name is Alexander-Mckellar, and I will be doing a spoken report on Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. It's a fantastic book right here. So, some context on the book is that it's about a man named Victor Frankenstein and how he goes on this giant journey of psychological issues that form who he is in the beginning in the book and towards the end of the book as well. Some context on Victor is that Victor is very, I wouldn't say self-centered, but he is very educated and he has a giant ego that is not often exposed, but it really does play a giant theme inside of the book where, because of how self-centered he is, he rather likes to make himself seem superior to others. And we all know that when it comes to us being full of ourselves, we also feel sorry for ourselves quite a lot. That is one of Victor's biggest flaws about him, is because when he starts to feel self-pity for him, the negative emotions that he reflects onto his friends and his family are it does not help him manage to go further in his persistence to try to better the situation. So if you think of this as an overall theme statement, it is basically saying the more you feel sorry for yourself, or instead of feeling sorry for yourself all the time, you should be able to manage the consequences that come with any situation that you have put yourself in. One point, and to support this, I would like to go into how Victor's negative emotions reflect onto his best friend, Henry Clerval. Henry has grown up with Victor through many, many things, and even though Victor and Henry have a very good relationship, in the text, it has been shown that Victor does not externally give he does not give external emotions towards people that he's been with his whole life, even if it is a Clerval. So a quote that I would like to do this, some context on this quote would be that Clerval, no, Victor was going off to university and Clerval wanted to accompany him, but even though Clerval had a lot of persistence, his father would not let him go. The quote is, this is from Victor. He said he had endeavored to persuade his father to permit him to accompany me and to become my fellow student, but in vain. So some analysis on that. So Victor overall does not really care if Clerval does follow him, but this is like a example of his superiority where he's like, if he learns after me, then it's going to be just fine. And even though that they are really, really good friends, Victor does not show at least a little bit amount of interest. Another point I would like to make is the difference is the relationship that is shared between Elizabeth and Elizabeth and Victor. Elizabeth is Victor's non-biological sister who has been planned to get married, and they have been planned to get married due to Victor's mother saying when they adopted Elizabeth, yes, you two are going to get married and live this happily ever after. So some context on how Victor's negative emotions reflects onto Elizabeth, and that is in his letters and when they were together. So in his letters, he has a bright sense of vocabulary, and he often uses big language when he writes letters to his family and even Elizabeth. to keep up that superiority complex.
It looks completely soaked.
Um,
It looks even worse in the back. It looks like you got hit.
okay. What else? What else? What else? So, and then even when they were together, it was still this giant superiority battle because Victor didn't want to be able to show emotion to Elizabeth, even though he did care for her immensely. He still continued this giant ego that because he is more academically, even though he's more academically prepared, he is not emotionally prepared for pretty much anything, let alone marriage. So even though Elizabeth does not see all of the negative emotions that Victor gives off when they are together, she does understand Victor in a way of like, I know he cares about me, even though he writes such complex letters to me. And she had a very sad death, and that kind of sucked because the monster that that Victor had created was the monster that ended up killing Elizabeth on the night of Victor's and Elizabeth's wedding. And the emotions that Victor had reflected onto Elizabeth's death were almost just as negative as him being well, the quote is, "Curse, creator, why did I..." Oh, wrong quote. Sorry. Not the right one. When... Okay. So, and the quote is, "When I reflected on his crimes and malice, my hatred and revenge burst all bounds of moderation. I would have made a pilgrimage to the highest peak of the Andes, could I when there have precipitated him to their base." So that was basically him cursing himself because he believes that through all of the monster's attempts to try to destroy Victor's pride and stuff like that, it has been quite obvious that his plans to create the monster for good had failed, and that was when he started going down his self-pity path, where he just was like, he basically gave up, had a giant nervous breakdown, gave up on his monster, and he decided to want to like study again for like something else that wasn't trying to bring things back to life, or basically science in that case. And it's interesting because it brings up my last point into the how Victor and his monster are basically mirrors of each other. So through Victor's upbringings and stuff, he was a very macabre child, and in a way, that is how the monster, in a way, grew up. He was made from dead villagers, and he was basically brought up in a way where he felt very negative towards himself, and he didn't know how to take out that anger because he was lonely. So he ended up actually killing a bunch of people, like Victor's wife and Victor's best friend. And a quote that the monster creates towards himself, towards his self-pity, is, "Cursed, creator, why did I live? Why in that instant did I not extinguish the spark of existence which you had so wantonly bestowed? I did not know despair had not yet taken possession of me. My feelings were those of rage and revenge. I could with pleasure have destroyed the cottage and its inhabitants, and have glutted myself with their shrieks and misery." That was the monster talking to himself about how he could have done so much other because he has all this power, but he didn't. And that is the really true question, as why didn't he do it? And it is because he was too busy he was too busy having so much self-pity. And after Elizabeth was killed, Victor went on this giant journey to try to find his monster. The monster was not really trying to be found, more like he left clues for Victor to attempt to be found. And that just wasn't happening. So towards the end of the book, Victor did not end up finding his monster, but he ended up finding another man, and he basically explained his whole life story to the man, including about finding the monster. Eventually, Victor ended up dying in his sleep, and in the end, the monster found Victor and wept over Victor's dead body. And that was like another form of self-pity, because of the fact that he, like, not only did he see his creator dying, but he saw himself dying, because he knew that there wouldn't be anyone else to keep him company from the sick side world. So in conclusion to this wonderful, fantastic book, no one should have to feel sorry for themselves if they made a mistake. No one should have to follow in Victor's footsteps and have to keep changing themselves because of the fact that they made a mistake. So if you do something, be sure to try to manage the consequences in the best way possible to make your life so much easier. All right. Thank you. Bye, Miss Watts. You're awesome.